I'd like to thank Chairman Comer and members of the Oversight and Accountability Committee for joining today's Committee on House Administration for our joint hearing. This is the third full committee hearing in the Committee on House Administration's American Confidence and Election series, leading up to the reintroduction of the American Confidence and Election Act, or the ACE Act. The ACE Act is the most conservative election bill to be considered in the House in over 20 years. It works to boost voters' confidence and uphold the Constitution by ensuring states maintain primary control over elections, not the federal government. This is in stark contrast to House Democrats' efforts the last two Congresses, which would have nationalized our election system and centralized it in Washington, D.C. Voters' confidence in our election system isn't a partisan issue, and I'll note that voters from both parties have had questions in the past. The ACE Act will equip states with voluntary tools that they can implement to boost voter confidence and strengthen election integrity. However, while the Constitution clearly reserves power over our elections to the state, it explicitly gives Congress the responsibility to ensure the District of Columbia is governed effectively, including elections. That's why it's important to have today's hearing alongside the Oversight Committee. The goal of today's hearing is to discuss how we can ensure elections and boost voter confidence in the District of Columbia by implementing key election reforms outlined in the ACE Act. For years, D.C. elections have been mismanaged. In 2015, the Board of Elections sent verification postcards to 260,000 inactive voters, with nearly 40,000 of those returned as undeliverable. It's a big number. In 2015, the D.C. auditor reviewed a list of people who died the year before. Every single person reviewed was still on the voter rolls and eligible to vote. D.C. failed its audit. It's a huge problem. When a person dies, they should be removed from the voter rolls. The ACE Act fixes this problem. In 2020, D.C.'s bad decisions continued. During the primary, voters waited in line at some polling locations for hours, and some never received mail-in ballots. D.C. then made the decision to allow voters to submit ballots by unsecure email. This raises serious concerns about election integrity and erodes confidence in our elections. In the 2020 general election, the D.C. Board of Elections mailed every person on an unmaintained list a ballot. A post-election audit found that 11% of the 421,000 ballots sent were undeliverable. That's nearly 50,000 ballots. 2 years later, during the 2022 midterm, 508,000 ballots were mailed and nearly 90,000 were undeliverable. That's on top of hundreds of voters who were mailed incorrect ballots. Did D.C. work to address these errors? No. D.C. allows voting without a photo ID. D.C. allows ballot harvesting. D.C. allows non-citizens to vote. It's a huge problem. The ACE Act will fix it. We already know that left-leaning organizations accept millions in foreign money intended to influence American politics. We should all work against foreign influence in our elections. But what will D.C. do? Under a new local law, D.C. made elections more susceptible to foreign interference. After living here for just 30 days, embassy staff from Russia or China could cast a ballot in Washington, D.C. elections. This is beyond unacceptable. American elections should be for American citizens. Our nation's capital should be a beacon of democracy and a national model for excellence in elections administration. This isn't about who wins or loses elections, but rather ensuring voters have confidence in our elections. That's why we need the ACE Act. I'm focused on using Congress's constitutional authority to bring common sense election integrity reforms to the district and protect its voters. The ACE Act takes D.C. from being the poster child on how not to run an election to being the model for states to follow. The ACE Act will make 10 essential reforms in D.C., including 1, requiring strong voter ID laws, 2, prohibiting non-citizens from voting, 3, requiring annual voter list maintenance, and 4, stopping unsolicited mailing of ballots to unmaintained lists. Contrary to what many on the left have said, including what I anticipate we'll hear today, the data shows that states that have implemented common sense election integrity laws have experienced increased voter turnout. It's time to follow the facts and not the false narratives. If Democrats want to work together and encourage more people to vote, they can start by supporting the ACE Act to strengthen voter confidence right here in our nation's capital.